Thank you.
All right. All right, well, there's always time for more glitches. Let's try that. All right, we shall call this meeting, this high-tech meeting to order. This is a budget hearing on our preliminary budget, and if you haven't signed in, please do sign in to speak so we can go in order. We'll listen to your comments. We ask that you keep them under 3 minutes so everyone has a time to speak. And then the board and I will reflect on your comments. We also have on a related note, since we have Veterans Day coming up, green light bulbs that we're encouraging people to light on their front porches or front lights. So there, help yourself to a green light bulb and in celebration of our veterans.
Yeah.
All right. If there's a list up there, and sir, last one to do it, could you bring it over here? I have a leg that doesn't work, so I can't walk over there. Or Jules, could you bring it over? Yeah. Thank you. So this is a sign in. Not everyone who put their name down necessarily has to speak, but you're welcome to. I'll just go in the order that the people signed up. Mason, did you want to say anything or?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
I think this will be under 3 minutes, but I'll try to be brief. So first, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening and for your careful consideration of our budget. I was able to watch the recorded video of the special budget workshop held a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to bring to your attention just 2 issues that I think were misunderstood during those deliberations. First, I would like to clarify our dual budget submission. In response to the letter we received on August 5th from the supervisor, we provided 2 versions of a budget. The first was detailing only essential legally required expenses such as utilities, fuel, training, etc., while excluding items such as member support, food for meetings, open house costs, and public outreach efforts. Our success in recent years is owed to the strength of our membership, some of whom are here this evening. We are the only department in the town of Dryden with a fully implemented shift system and 24/7 emergency coverage. With support of our volunteers, without the support of our volunteers, we face a significant recruitment and retention challenges, which could compromise our ability to handle the growing number of calls and our mutual aid responsibilities with Aetna and Southern Dryden. Our members work tirelessly to make the VVFC a model department, and we believe that they deserve support similar to that afforded other departments with fully approved budgets. The second point is in regard to the so-called Brooktondale agreement. Contrary to what was mentioned during that meeting, we did not consider this expansion of territory in our budget submission. We had not received confirmation that the proposal was approved until immediately after the budget workshop. I had emailed the town supervisor on October 3rd, specifically requesting an update on the Brooktondale contract status to inform our budget planning, but unfortunately I did not receive a response. Our budget was submitted before the town board's decision to change the contract and expand our territory. While this expansion will likely result in a modest increase in our call volume, this added work is made only more difficult in light of the funding cut from our full budget. We appreciate that the town board is working with a limited amount of money with which to provide the emergency services in the town of Dryden. However, our department has grown tenfold in the last 4 years, and we are now taking on additional territory. We respectfully request that you reconsider approving our full budget request of $440,000, which would allow us to continue providing exceptional service to the residents of Varna, Ellis Hollow, and Aetna without sacrificing support of our membership, maintenance of our aging apparatus fleet, or replacing outdated mission-critical equipment. Happy to answer any questions, but that's all I had to say. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll this comment here. We recognize what you're saying about the change to the service and the contract with Brookendale. And I think that the board is willing to think about that more.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, next on the list, we have Michael Parker.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Mine's not so much a speech as it is interactive here. I have some questions about the amount that we saw posted in the paper. In our previous meeting, I brought up the amounts in our budget, and Rebecca had been working on the budget of what we need to maintain. That's our capital reserves. It costs a lot more. Obviously, we went over this already. It costs a lot more. Things have gone up by double digits. We all know that. And when we readjusted our budget and asked for the amount that we asked for, it's to maintain. We're not asking for anything extra. We're not asking to buy a boat. We're not asking to buy a helicopter. We're asking to maintain our budget, to maintain our capital reserves so that we can keep operating the way that we have been. We just had an emergency repair. We had to have a parking lot put in at $138,000 out of our capital reserve. That's a huge hit, especially when that money is coming out of the New York class account that we were, getting the interest on towards adding on for our new trucks and stuff. So that was a big hit to that. The question had been raised, and I understand the question, when is the double-digit increase is going to stop? The answer to that question is when the economy gets better, when things get built in our country that is not going to raise these double-digit numbers to buy. These increases have come to us, and we're asking to pass it on to be where we need to be. We've been so far behind in our budget for so many years. And we understand it's a big amount, but we need that amount to maintain and to purchase the new equipment that we need to when we need to do it. We don't buy the high dollar stuff. We stay within limits. We're not putting all of these electronics, fancy gear and computers and stuff in our vehicles. We can't afford to do that. So we're maintaining a budget that we're spending pretty wisely, but we're just asking to be where we need to be. Freeville is comparable to Varna in size, call volume, equipment. We're running about the same as what they are, but we're way below even being comparable to what they are. But if you look at the numbers to date, and we just ran these numbers today, Freeville's at 419 calls for the year, and we still have 2 months to go. We could hit 500 calls this year. We're 50 calls ahead of Dryden. We're 60 calls ahead of Varna, and we're 245 calls ahead of Aetna, and 63 of those calls are to Aetna. The question starts to come into play is, what are we going to do about Aetna? We've gone 3 months without seeing a piece of apparatus on scene from Aetna, period. And we're covering all their stuff. But that's not being reflected in our budget either. We've never asked for a dime to cover for Aetna. And neither is Varna, and I know they didn't bring that part up either. But sooner or later, we're covering for these people. The residents of Aetna are wanting to know why Freeville is showing up, why Varna is showing up. Where's Aetna? On all these rescue calls we've been going on, we get maybe one person from Aetna and no apparatus. It doesn't do us any good. I mean, when we talked about the contract last year, the contract was, this is your contract. If you can't live up to it, then something's got to change. Well, something's going to have to change. And I'm asking for our budget. We've got to maintain. This is going into our capital reserves. We're not looking to take this budget and just go out and blow money. People's never done that. We've never gone out and just blown money on stuff. We've been very responsible. And all we're asking is to be where we need to be to maintain. If we can get to where we need to be to maintain, the double-digit increases should stop. And we should get back on track to what we used to do. So one of my questions is who and what determines the amount that we get in our budget? How is this determined?
Well, I'm gonna have some questions too, but what I had asked people to do is stay within roughly about 4.5%. But the question I have is have these concerns been brought up to the village? Because you're also a village department and the village contributes $13,000 plus whatever is the workers' comp.
Yes, and we are going to be requesting more from the village as well.
But the question is like, how much? Because the thing.
I don't
is,
have the
like,
exact
like,
number.
when you talk about, did the 140,000 for the parking lot come from the village?
No, it came out of our capital reserves of our department. Every
So
every
that
dime.
means like it came primarily from the town, right, like the overall town, not the village though. So
Well, I mean, that
it's
includes,
a village property though, correct?
no, we're a privately owned company.
Well, I know that, but is it a village? Is that a village, like, does a village own that
No,
property at all?
no, Freeville owns the property and the station.
They own this, they don't own.
We own everything. And that 138,000 for the parking lot came out of our overall budget. From both, from the town and the village. That all goes into our capital reserves. We take the village money and put it right in there too. So it basically it comes from everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that the village probably has to start pulling more of its weight. I mean,
Yeah, and we are.
The
we are asking
village
for
is
more.
small, but it's just, we're having the same issue with the village of Dryden where we're providing the lion's share of everything when there's, you know, a lot of activity even here, and it's just, you know, we're trying to make it as fair as possible for everybody in town.
Yeah, I understand, but I mean, when you ask for, you know, us to try to stay within a 4.5% increase. Well, trucks went up 35%, gear went up 17%. Our taxes, you know, people's taxes have gone up like crazy. Everything is going up. Except we can't maintain, and I want to know why. Why can't we maintain? We just want to be where we need to be to maintain, and we're not there.
Can you explain what you mean by people's taxes are going up?
Our school taxes went up
Yeah.
enormously. How come we can't increase the fire tax to get us where we need to be? Everything else goes up.
School taxes. I just want to be.
You know, school tax, all the taxes.
Direct taxes haven't gone.
But the school taxes went up enormously.
And you have a incremental approach to taxing.
And I understand that.
And
Electricity.
residents expect that. That's part of the reason, you know, they elect us, you know, because we're stewards of the tax base.
Well, our electricity went up crazy. So that impacts the fire department. I mean, when your delivery service goes up 60% to 70%, whatever, it just went up. It's a crazy amount. That affects us. We use a lot of electricity. The trucks are plugged in all the time. These things are going up and we're asking to maintain. We're asking to get where we need to be so that these double-digit increases can stop. Like I said, we're comparable with Varna. Varna's over 400,000 a year. We're asking for, I think it was 409 to get to where we need to be to put that money into capital reserves. And I understand it's a big amount. But we also have to have that in our capital reserves to maintain the equipment that we have. And to pay our fees and to pay our bills. And to buy equipment for our members, their gear. You know, it's everything. Everything adds up, and it's added up to way more than what we're looking at. And when we were talking about the parking lot before, having the town do the trucking and stuff was supposed to save us money. Didn't save us a dime. We got a bill for the full amount. I mean, it's a big hit. It's a big hit that came out of our capital reserves for that. And any other questions on what we have here? I mean, we're really frustrated with how these decisions are being made. I mean, we run the most calls in the town of Dryden and get paid by far the least amount per call.
And to us, you know, we're trying to manage the budgets of 4 different departments with 4 different operations, 4 different styles. And it puts us in a difficult position because we'll hear from one department, we'll hear from another, and everyone makes a good solid case. Our question to you would be, do you guys ever talk about, or gals ever talk about the different responses, like you just mentioned, in your neighboring department? You feel like you're covering a lot of theirs. What's your dialogue between them?
The same as yours. I mean, it's the same as yours, the contract. When are you gonna fulfill your contract? But then it comes down to the point that the board needs to make a decision on a contract with whoever's not fulfilling their contract. It's tough to say and it makes people angry and it drives a wedge. I understand that, but sooner or later it's gotta happen.
But surely you
Something's gotta
remember when we tried to make put a few more teeth in our contract
It's there.
last spring, we got massive pushback.
Reread the contract that they signed, Dan, that we all signed. Read the very first paragraph. And you have it. It's in there. But irregardless, we're looking at Freeville and what it takes to maintain. Our capital reserves need to be up there. We've already put off replacing another truck and doing an upgrade to it to hold on to it for more years so that we can save some money. But we still need that amount in our capital reserves to hold on to that newer class and the percentage that we're getting to be able to do that down the road when we can. And at the current rate, we're not going to be able to do it. We're going to be in the red in just a couple of years. And so I'm asking the board to reconsider and just get us to where we need to be. And then hopefully next year, we will be in line with those percentages that we're looking at. Hopefully we can keep them low. Because we do spend very well, and we've always been honest with the Dryden Town Board. We haven't tried to pass anything off. We haven't tried to sneak anything through. We've been honest and upfront, and we've fulfilled our contract. And so all I'm asking is, please put us where we need to be in Freeville. Make us comparable. Because we do run the most calls, and we have been for years. And now we're just asking to be where we need to be.
All right, well, I just want to be clear, you're asking for about a 30% increase in your budget.
I understand that.
And if we were to do that with any other account, we would have a tough time describing that to our taxpayers. That's a big lift. And this is the balancing act that we're put in. And that's why we, early in this year, we made it very clear that we wanted these requests, we needed these requests to be in line. CPI plus a couple, that's really what we're looking for. And the other departments came in that area.
But they've also been getting a much bigger budget than we have every year. For many years. We're trying to catch up for many years.
Cases for bigger budgets.
Everybody does.
They really-
Everybody does. And just like you said, with 4.5% increase, everything's gone up way more than 4%. So nobody can maintain at 4%. It's not possible. It's not financially possible. Ask any financial person. If things are going up 10% and you only ask for 4%, you're going in the red very soon. We can't maintain that. And I get that. But we've got to get to where we need to be so that we're not asking for a bunch every year. And I understand 30% is a lot. But are the other departments in the town in the situation that we're in, because our budget is so much less, but yet all of our equipment costs the same. They have a bigger budget to buy that equipment. We don't. We need to be where we need to be to get it in our capital reserves. So we're making that interest so that we can do it without asking for more money, because we'll be getting it in the interest. But we've got to get it in there first. So I'm just asking if we can please just get where we need to be. That's all I have.
So we were gonna hold till the end, right?
Yeah, okay.
That's a lot of notes.
Now that Jason's here, I'm passing the chairmanship to the right. You can have the list.
Jason, before you came in, we had said we were gonna listen to everybody and then respond at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
So that's why we're being quiet.
Okay, Nicola. So he, tell you? You good? Okay. Ariana. Joe. Oh, okay.
Why not then?
I would have
John.
one person every meeting.
Okay.
If you stop,
I couldn't
stop your.
bless him, sorry.
Turn it back, go away, and then it'll go like an hour ago.
May? No, okay. Jules.
Hi, folks. How's everybody tonight? Well, you guys know why I'm here. I'm here to request that other 4.5% on behalf of my members of my staff, Nicole and Deb Gallagher. You know, at the preliminary budget meeting, I pointed out the fact that Greenville Court is closing. The volume of cases in Dryden, the way we figure it is gonna be somewhere between an increase of 25 to 30%. And that's an estimate because we don't know what it's gonna take to move that court up here. And we don't know at this point how many criminal cases or DWIs and things of that nature they have. I did address with the town board at the last meeting, the fact that the volume of tickets is gonna be another 470 to 500 tickets, which leaves us essentially the same volume as the city of Ithaca. Now, I know the city of Ithaca are union people or whatever they are, but their clerks are making $96,000 a year. Lansing's up to 84,000, and we're not even competitive with the city of Ithaca. Well, we're getting more competitive, and that was where we were 2 years ago, trying to get a little more competitive with the town of Ithaca. But I had made the request for the 10% increase at the last meeting. I believe that based on my calculations, what was budgeted was another 5.5. So I'm here to ask for that other 4.5. And basically, I think it's kind of a lowball request because of the fact that the increase in volume not only is going to, is about 25 to 30%, and maybe actually a little bit more once we calculate in the criminal cases that we have to deal with. So basically, I'm essentially addressing the same issues I did last time, so I won't repeat myself about that. But I did have a question for the board as well. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer to this, which is the budgeting for the court security, which is 30,000. And I believe it's always been 30,000. And in 2023, we only used 18,000 of that. So the question I have is what happens to the rest of that money? I presume it goes back into the general fund. So for 2025, we're at the 30,000 again, and I'm not sure that we're going to, based upon 2024, I'm not sure we're going to get to that. So I'm not sure whether any of that budgeted money can be used for the clerks as well, which would be a nice way to go. But in any event, I'm here to ask for that other 4.5%, which would get us to the 10% increase that we requested. And it's, as I had indicated, it's not based on just the idea that we're asking to increase the salaries of the two clerks. It's that their workload and the volume of work in the court is going to be increased by quite a bit, at least 25%. So that's all I have.
Do you know what causes the fluctuation in the court security? Like 2022 was 23,000, but then it went down to 18 the following year.
Well, I don't, but I would speculate that it's because due to when we had the COVID restrictions, we went to 2 security guards, but not necessarily all of the time.
Right. Okay.
So, and we're still, we're doing that now, in that we have one security guard. We have one security guard for non-DA nights, and then the one night a month where we have the DA night, we have a much greater volume, and that's the night we have the 2 security guards. But, and a lot depends too on, for quite a while during COVID, the volume of cases was less in terms of the fact that we just didn't have the criminal cases.
Okay.
So we didn't have the traffic tickets really never changed. but the volume of the criminal cases changed, so.
So the 18 is probably more average.
I would think, yeah, and this year we're only at 12.6, so we're certainly probably gonna get to no more than 18 this year as well. So if that's a way to,
Period of time. Was paid for security for the security officer here at the town board meeting.
that
Oh, okay, that, yeah.
would explain.
would
the
make sense, too.
difference. So.
Okay.
Oh, okay, well,
Was found like another one.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's just to sum up, we thought that 10% increase in terms of taking on the load in Freeville was a reasonable, and I thought pretty much a lowball request, so that's all I've got. Anybody have any other questions or,
Respond after everybody speaks.
I'm sorry, oh,
Since we're only dealing on one topic here, I guess you might not want to.
Yeah.
Listen to all the rest of the fire department stuff.
Okay.
Well, the hours are not going to change. Right? You know, I know you're.
well, the hours, I understand is the hours
Symbolic, but
can't change.
so the hours will remain the same.
Right.
Just want to be clear on that. I just want to make sure this isn't put to cover more hours.
Right.
Okay. And then this increased workload hasn't occurred yet, so we're not 100% sure what the increased workload is.
Well, we definitely know what the increase in traffic tickets is gonna be, because we have the statistics as to how many traffic tickets they handled between January and September. Now, that was over 400. So, I was just using that figure based upon the numbers that we already have. Theoretically, they're gonna be open till the end of the year, so that's gonna be even a little bit more. But those traffic tickets aren't gonna change because the troopers are active in Freeville and they have a couple of spots in Freeville that they have their speed traps in Freeville, one on Fall Creek, which most of those tickets were going to Freeville. That's not gonna change, so that increased volume is gonna be here with us. So those 500 Freeville traffic tickets each year are going to pretty much be the same. So we do know that. We just don't know what their criminal volume is in terms of criminal cases. I did note from the centralized arraignment part, Freeville had 4 centralized arraignment cases this past month. So if you extrapolate that, that's 48 cases theoretically, but those are just the ones that are coming through CAP. So it might actually be more cases than that, which would add another 50, 60 criminal cases. They all have to be processed and.
So does that mean you likely, based on the numbers you're giving, that you would have to be hiring additional staff or temporary staff?
Well, we're not
You can only do
asking,
so much per day, right?
right, we're not asking for that. So our staff is gonna see how well they can process the rest of this work by taking on that additional court. And they're gonna see how well, we're gonna find out how well they can possibly do that within the 40-hour week. And as you know, the overtime is really not on the table. So,
It's
so we'll
difficult
have to
because
see.
you guys aren't the only one in this situation, right? When we start trying to compare to other municipalities, we're not paying the same amount across the board, but we don't have the money. So we're gonna be running tight or even into the red using reserves just to do what we're doing this year. So it's without trying to raise taxes. So just saying that because I don't want anyone to feel singled out. You guys weren't alone in the ask to increase to be comparable with our neighbors, but
Well,
just
it's along the same.
money as they do.
It's along the same lines of what the gentleman from the Freeville Fire Department just said too. The volume of the work that we're doing in this court is larger than the volume in all of these other jurisdictions, with the exception of the city of Ithaca.
Yeah.
And the city of Ithaca, of course, their salaries are well above anybody else's. But so we're doing a lot more work than the other courts, including the town of Lansing and the town of Ithaca. So, and that's why I said I thought that the request at 10% was very reasonable under the circumstances.
Well, I will just say that, there isn't a staff member in this town that isn't doing more than they did last year. We're all doing more, including us. Our workloads get bigger every year, and I know you've got an expected increase in workload as well. And we recognize that. In most institutions, a 5.5% increase in salary would be a recognition of either exceptional work or increased workload. So I would just ask you to take that into consideration as well. 5.5% increase. I don't get that each year in my other job. I don't, we're not taking that here amongst ourselves. And so we'd have some other explaining to do with the rest of the town staff about why these employees are singled out for a disproportionate increase.
Well, because we're taking on the work of an entire village court, which is increasing dramatically.
Well,
So if you're talking about a 30% increase in work volume in taking over that court, what we're talking about really is a minor adjustment in.
But when it happens, I think we'll.
It's gonna happen in another month, December.
Go through this process again next year. We'll want to hear what
Well,
happened and how much did the workload increase. We've had staff members here who have taken on immensely more details in their work in the past year. Their pay didn't go up, but in this coming budget, we looked at what they did in the previous year and we tried to make it compensate.
Well, if you want to extrapolate that, the bottom line is that our staff took on an increased workload this year without taking over the Freeville court. And that's kind of a little bit more on the extraordinary side. So not only do we have an increased workload in Dryden, but we have a new court coming in and we're taking that
I
over.
think if you
And we need to
look at
function.
your request over the last few years, we've been accommodating and we have made big increases that far exceed the rate of inflation CPI. Because we listen to you, we just can't always go to the threshold.
No, I understand that.
We
I
can't
think,
go to the
I
threshold. that
think the
you're asking.
board's compromise 2 years ago was good. But again, 2 years ago, the figures that we had given were lowball. And that was just to drag us up to be $10,000-15,000 short of where these other clerks were. So we increased the base salary slightly, and so here we are. Anyway,
It was double
that's,
digits. It was double digits. So, when you say it's better,
and we're still nowhere near.
we
Well,
tried to be accommodating and.
No, I know, but we're still nowhere near the other courts, which handle a lot less.
That's a dangerous thing to do, because I can find you other court clerks that are paid less, and you can find me ones that are paid more. And I've been
Right.
down this road, I've studied it, I've, gathered information. It's really a rabbit hole when you start saying, in town of such and such does this.
I understand that, but
But you don't look at longevity, you
but
don't look at
volume-
benefits, let me finish, you don't look at benefits, you don't look at all the fringe that go into the work.
okay.
So, I mean, it's, I would just caution against doing. it.
And they have more money. I mean, that's part of it. They have more money than we do. So it's a bigger hit to each person's taxes in the town of Dryden than it is in Lansing. Because we don't have the same manufacturing base and things like that are bringing the money in.
Okay.
It's not a personal thing. I wish we had enough money that we were comparable across the board, but it's real across our whole
Okay.
organization.
But as I said, I mean, one of the places is this, the security where there may be some monies there. Every year I've offered to not take any increase in my salary so my staff can get what they want. And Dan, you've said in the past that that's somehow not permissible, but I don't know why, but in any event.
I'm not sure what you mean, it's not permissible.
I've said that I would forego my increase so that my staff
Okay,
could.
correct. So you could redirect. what
So
you're-
my
what
staff
you
could benefit from that. That would still be part of the court budget, and I'm certainly even willing to do that this year. So that the staff can get what they deserve, so.
We don't want to operate that way. I mean,
Well, we-
we value all the work that your office is doing, your work included.
Well,
You know?
that's true, and I mean, and you know, the court is one of the faces of the town of Dryden, and I think it's one of the more respected courts in the county, and that's because of our staff, so.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Does Judge Clausen feel the same way? Because we couldn't, I don't think we.
What's that?
About salary.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't know. If he was here, we could ask him.
So,
He's not here.
Curious about that, but the other thing too is.
But I don't have a problem with doing it for me.
Here's the thing though, if there's this increased work, which was from a part-time clerk, I know in Freeville. I mean, and if it's gonna be that much of a burden and the work has to get done in the same amount of time, why wouldn't there have been an ask for a part-time clerk? To
A
help-
part-time
to-
clerk for who?
For the court,
Yeah.
if there's an extra 500, I mean, the thing is, because the timeframes don't change to process things and then. I mean, I know, I don't know how many years ago it was, but there was a part-time. Like clerical person in the court at some point.
Yeah, but that was for records.
Those are records, yeah, it must have been, but
Right.
That's still,
But
So-
you know, if the volume, you know, of the work you do will increase to a certain point where the number of hours that are already you have at your, you know, disposed, you know, you get it, then you will need extra help. It doesn't matter whether we increase the, you know, because it's the same hours. It's the same number of hours.
Right, well, if they don't get the work done, the court doesn't function. So they need to get the work done, which means, I mean, you know, maybe shorter lunches or whatever it takes, our clerks are gonna get the work done, but the bottom line is the volume still has increased 30%. And, you know,
but you don't think you might need a temp?
Yeah.
You might.
I have no idea.
Son?
But if the work, you know, the work's got to get done each week, by the time we hesitate to do that, the Department of Motor Vehicles will be auditing us or whatever it is they do, thinking we're not processing the work. I don't know that there would be people skilled enough to do that. You can't just bring in a part-time person. They have to be trained on the entire system, the entire computer system and the budgeting system as well with the controller's office and with the Department of Motor Vehicles. So you know, our clerks are very skilled and very trained to operate those systems.
So plus
And,
with the 4.5% you're asking for, that's a lot cheaper than a whole other person. So I think it's a good deal.
I would agree with that. And with that, a new person would require whatever other benefits they're entitled to as well.
Especially
So-
if they could take it away from somewhere else,
I was gonna-
the court security.
It's not a question of being cheaper or not, it's just a question of the volume of the work. If the volume of the work goes beyond the capacity for your staff, you know, to actually respond to that.
We don't,
Then whatever we do, we will have to be dealing with extra help.
but we don't know that that's gonna be the case, because these ladies are very skilled and they'll attempt to get all this work done. But if the work doesn't get done, the court collapses. So that, you know, and it'd be one thing if I was coming in here saying, oh, we're gonna get another 60, 70 tickets or whatever. But we're talking about a huge volume, so that's the reason. So, and that's the reason why I believe that the request was really a lowball request under the circumstances. So, well, thanks, you guys. I know you got a lot of other people you need to hear from.
Yep. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else who had any I guess, questions, comments on the budget, who's here or on Zoom?
Is Bambi gonna switch? Is Bambi gonna switch tables?
I don't know.
Are you one of the guest speakers or?
I wouldn't ask for more for myself or for my deputies. But you were broke and you can't compare to other towns. It's no sense.
Do you wanna try? Okay.
You are getting increases, be clear.
Everyone.
Sure.
I'm not worried about it. I just wanted to bring it up to the council so that we don't lose staff.
Well, we want them, and we want all the staff that are getting over CPI to recognize that we're rewarding great work. You know.
Okay.
That should be communicated and should be understood.
I will give that.
Yeah.
You mentioned longevity at some place, and that's never taken into consideration.
Yeah, we don't have a band system or anything like that, which builds that in, but that's something we haven't done yet.
Well, the thing about interest is, you know, if we. Your salary goes up 4 or 5% a year. After a few years, that becomes a lot more money.
Yeah.
And that's the best we can do.
Okay. So then, all right, so. What did you guys wanna go over as far as changes then?
Well, I think the easy one would be the two court clerks, because even if we give them that 4.5% extra per person, that comes to 49.25. But if you lower the court security down to 20,000, that's $10,000. So we're only taking half of that.
Yeah, but is that really fair? Because we can't do that for everyone.
Well, no, but this is a special circumstance because they are taking on extra workload.
I understand that, but they're also not working more hours, so I'd rather keep that as a cushion to hire additional staff if they need it. Because 5.5% is still huge salary increase.
Well, that's my proposal. So
Okay.
are you guys worried that you're not gonna be able to do your extra work? Is there like any fear that you wouldn't be able to get that done? Yeah. Cause I mean, I've seen both of you guys in action. I'm fully confident that you would be able to do the extra work and I would prefer to compensate you for it.
The idea, it would be impossible to hire a part-time person because you have to be trained in the systems. State, the controller system and the Department of Motor Vehicle system. And they you just don't do that overnight.
There'd be additional costs for the town because they would have to go to training.
So that's mandatory for you. Your training is mandatory.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard because other groups are in a similar situation. You know, taking on a huge amount of additional work and. We capped the raises at 5.5 to keep the taxes from going up, so that was,
Well,
it's
I
just
mean,
hard.
I don't know, I mean, what happens is we're getting into this every year asking for 10. And we meet in the middle,
What the board decided to do. The year
which was
before-
still like every,
2 years before, it was in order to even make our salaries somewhat commensurate with the jurisdiction.
I mean, I kind of get it, cause this is
Hopes of not losing our staff.
like the sixth municipality I've worked for and I've been in this situation where like my position was underpaid compared to everybody else. And then they brought us up to where we were equal to other jurisdictions. And then once you're there, it's like you don't keep asking for outrageous amounts, then it's normalized, so then it just goes up incrementally. You don't ask for those once you get to that point.
And the board compromised 3 years ago. I was told that I had eyeballed the board, but I really haven't. And the board compromised, and that was, we were happy with that. And that was 3 years ago, and so we're back this year, essentially because of this Freeville situation, and taking on that new court.
Right, and there's not gonna be a situation like this next year. You're not gonna take over anybody else. So I look at this as like a one-time thing. I realized something happened 3 years ago before I got here, but I don't see anything like this happening the next couple of years. So I think this is gonna be it. Right, there's no more villages.
Well, for the last 2 years, we didn't come back against for the increase. We took what the town board.
Yeah.
determined that, which would essentially cost of living.
And it sounds like that's what's gonna happen after this year too.
Are you proposing that?
That's my
Yeah, maybe you
proposal.
wanna,
Are you making a motion?
Oh, sorry, do I need to make a motion for that or?
Yeah,
yeah, but you'd have to figure out a number.
Okay,
If you're gonna
I
do
have all
that.
the numbers. So
You know,
do I make a motion to give you my amounts? So I'll make the motion for a 1110.102 to increase it to 67,280, which was the 10%. And then for a 1110.103, raise that to 53,130, and then reduce the court security line .105 from 30 to 20,000. So that's reducing 10,000 off that. And that more than compensates for the extra 4.5%.
I'll second that.
Yeah. All right, so what's the
Yeah.
yes, what's the discussion on it then?
well, I think we're opening us up to discussing every other salary that's in here. The fact that we had some great staff show up to speak on this is wonderful, but it's also a situation where other staff will feel like, well, if I had showed up, maybe I would have gotten a 10% raise, and why didn't that happen? And I just think we're setting a dangerous precedent by doing this. I've already said my piece on why a 5.5 increase recognizes your great work and then some. This increased workload has not occurred yet. We'd like to see what it does to your ability to catch up and meet the demands of the job, but we haven't seen it yet. And like I said, there isn't a staff member in this organization who isn't taking on more than they did last year, myself included. And so I just think in fairness to all of our employees, I'm gonna vote against this.
I mean, emotionally,
I didn't
I've
have
been in your situation, so I get it, right? But it equitably across the entire organization, and other people have also are in similar workloading amounts. They can't just do that unless, like Dan said, we're looking at everybody's salaries, and we don't have a budget for everybody to get. Everybody who's been taking that kind of work on to be in that situation.
And
hard.
if you guys hadn't been here, I would still feel the same way. So it didn't have anything to do with them being here in person.
What's the percentage at without that
5.5.
5.5?
This would add 4.5. But we're still ahead 5,000 if we do it my way.
Well, if we don't need the clerk security, we shouldn't put it in there, period.
No,
So I mean,
we're already.
Well, they have security on there though. They have one person. You have one person you have one security officer.
We think that second security is not necessarily needed in our company, and how that came about, I can't answer that question. That wasn't.
But you don't always have two people here.
No.
It's only twice a month that there's two. Most of the time.
I think if that project was like at maybe 22,000, that would probably be enough.
But with our money,
We should be fixing that regardless.
where we are financially this year, it's not like that money would go into
It's
a
not.
pool for the future. We would just be pulling less out of our reserves to cover expenses, because we're going in the red.
But it would reduce our tax rate. If we were to take that out.
Which the
If we
security,
were to reduce security, we wouldn't be taxing on that amount.
Right.
Overall, so the responsible thing to do is to take that down to what, 22. Regardless, but that's not the motion on the floor right now.
Is to reduce to 22?
I had 20. That was my motion for 20.
So how much do we need?
It'd be a separate motion. Dan saying 22, Christine saying 20.
yeah, so I don't know, the thing is, if we're not gonna be doing this for anybody else, then. I don't think it should be just one department. I think that will cause. More problems than not. Alright, well, we can call it vote.
Council person Martinez,
What are we voting for?
The amendment that Christina proposed.
To increase two salaries. And
By a total of 49.25.
10% increase instead of a 5.5% increase.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no,
No. Right, and then as far as other budget amendments, I guess for. We want to discuss I guess go down the different fire departments.
would you want to fix this court security number? If it doesn't need to be at 36, we shouldn't be taxing the extra 16,000.
Yeah.
I'm looking at proposed budget, maybe that's old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we had already talked about reducing it from 36, because it was proposed at 36. I don't know why, but it was.
Okay, and it's now 30,
Right,
it's now 30, so. Which sounds like more than is necessary.
Yeah.
So we would be taxing our taxpayers less, and that seems like the responsible thing to do if we were to reduce that.
Take away security without compensating them, is that the case? Because we suggested that to do it, then don't take that out. Then there's no reason to take that out. I mean, if you're gonna take that out, use it to compensate these guys for 30% more work that they do. But don't take it out and say, oh, I'm saving the taxpayers money, because we don't know, maybe that's not the case, so. I'm not sure,
That's a novel way to do budgeting. If you said it's not needed and now you're telling us that suddenly it is needed.
Where does that money go? Like the 30,000 from last year, that wasn't, where does that money go? It goes back into the town.
it's goes back into the fund balance, which we're using about 600 and what, 80,000?
But why overtax our taxpayers if we're not using that money?
What we're saying is this is money that's always been budgeted to this court. So we're saying just adjust the budget and give it to the people who deserve it, as opposed to having a.
Yeah, we understand what you're saying.
So, I mean, and that was the proposal that was on there, was to reduce that to compensate the clerks. And if you're gonna reduce one, it seems like it would be nice to see. We've always had that same budget for the town, for the court, so why not give it to the people who deserve it?
Well, we also have to talk about when we're talking about where is the overall, the overall burden includes things like fire and ambulance budgets too.
right.
So if you're gonna be moving some more towards fire departments, then it's gonna, the overall amount. If you think of it like that,
And we're already running in the red because we're gonna be using fund balance money to keep from raising taxes, so
right,
it's not like we have the money
right,
and we're just figuring where to put it.
I think it's pretty obvious what we need to do here.
yeah. So. I mean, what number were you thinking to reduce that to then? Because I mean, if we're gonna shift it anywhere. I think it would end up being added back to, or.
Well, we know we have to make up the Brookendale contract money.
Right.
You can't move things from.
No, but you're not moving from that to that, but when people get a tax bill, they're gonna have a fire tax, an ambulance, a town. So it all adds up, like when you look at you go to the assessment department,
I
yeah,
think my
county assessment, there's a sheet they put out after, at some point during the year that lists every single total tax rate that people are paying, which includes for Dryden, I mean, for every town, it's if they have ambulance, if they have fire and their own town property tax, and it includes lighting districts and all that, if it applies to your property, and even for the villages, it includes, it has different things.
It's cumulative.
Right, it's a cumulative thing, so that's what I'm getting at. So we're thinking cumulatively, if you're gonna have to add back to another one of those columns. You get it?
I'll get it.
Just explain it.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just doing the weave,
so
so. All right, so do you wanna propose the reduction in the security to what?
well, what we actually spent.
Well, that's like, it goes up and down. I mean,
He's up there trials in one.
yeah, so, I mean, there might be a couple more trials potentially, but. I mean, it would seem like one year was what, 23? So,
We're now, right now, 20. or
20. 12,000, so then it would be,
Screwed up in reverse. I mean, we made a proposal to take money that you've always budgeted for security. To pay people, real live people, not retired cops who come in here and provide security because they have a gun. And so now you're gonna do that. So I just saved you $8,000.
You didn't save me money, you saved taxpayers' money, let's be clear on that.
To the clerks.
You're a
Come
taxpayer.
on, guys, you know that they deserve that.
We're giving the clerks a big raise.
You know.
I did not get a 5% increase last year.
I'm always
No.
hearing the beg status, but right now, I think if what you're doing here would be completely and totally unfair. We're saying, take money out of money that you've always budgeted for the court. And give it to the people who run the court, who are the court, and that's the clerks. The security, that's why I'm willing to, the security part of it makes no sense. But to now say, oh, Jules, you just had a great idea, so we're just gonna take that part of the budget and use it for something else. I'm sorry, I don't think that's fair. I don't think
Okay.
that's fair at all.
I understand.
I mean, I come with, hat in hand and kind of, try to never make a wave. But right now I have to make a wave because I think that's completely inappropriate to do that. The proposal that was put on the table makes perfect sense. Lower that to 22,000 and give the money to these clerks, which you'll still save some money there. Because I don't think that 4.5% the 4.5% probably comes to $5,000, so you're still $3,000 in the black. I don't understand how you can now just turn around and say, well, we're gonna take it, money that's always been budgeted, take it out, instead of giving it to the people who deserve it, and that's our clerks.
All right, thanks, Jules. All right, so. Is there a proposal to? A motion to knock the, I mean, I would say if you're gonna do the security part, they might need 25 though.
That would be.
Let's do that.
So, move that.
Second,
To reduce the security to 25,000.
Yep.
Councilperson Vargas Mendez,
Yes.
Yes,
No,
yes,
Yes. And then, were there other, I mean, we know the fire departments we get back to, were there other lines that anybody had? Anything else that they wanted to address?
I feel like we hashed it. Yeah.
I
I-
could have gone through everything.
I still had the question, it might be an Amanda question, the executive director for the Dryden Fiber. I understand that it's coming out of grant money, but shouldn't it still be in the budget since it is a salaried position?
So the project, the capital projects are not in the town budget. The town budget directly relates to the tax levy, the tax rate. And that is the piece that has to be published. We will be in December, have a resolution to appoint the executive director with his salary, so it will be published at that time. It will be in that resolution. It's not in the budget because the capital projects are not put in the budget, because they're not in the tax. So if they are funded by bonds, grants, and et cetera.
So he's gonna become an employee. So like next year, when the raises come up, he won't be in here, right?
Well, we might have to do it up to then. He wasn't an employee this year, and that's why he's not in there now.
Right.
And then
Right.
Well, I know he's,
it'll be
yeah, he's a
for
contract right now.
2025. We might need to make some changes at that time.
So like this time next year, his position will be in the budget.
Yes, I just have to
If
figure out
we-
where, but
we
it
pass
has.
that.
Yeah.
So yes, but at this time, he's not an employee, so it's not president and. So there will be a resolution in December.
Okay, I mean, it just seemed that since he's gonna be in the budget for 2025, that he would have been in here, but okay. Okay,
Yeah, it depends where the funding's coming. From. So. Okay, so then I guess we can start talking about the budget requests from, well, first, I guess, Varna.
Arnold went first.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, Mason spoke first,
Yep. So,
but at the same time, Mike brought up something that I don't know if it's worth discussing, but Mike
well, yeah,
asked about whether we're inferring what Mike said was asking about whether we're renewing all the contracts, but which is the current plan, but I don't know if that's something he asked us about that we should discuss or.
so I think whether we're renewing all the contracts.
Yeah.
Was my understanding from what he said.
well, so I have a question about the Aetna contract. So it sounds like they're still going to the fire calls, but not the rescue calls. So would it make sense to have Aetna come back with a different budget and break it up? Like which part of this budget is rescue and what part is fire?
well, okay, so. When I, that's why I sent all the information from Justin that I got up and through, it goes through October 20.
He sent
um,
spreadsheets. and
fourth.
data.
It had laid out like how many calls Freeville and Varna went to in Etna and how many Etna
No, I know that.
went to. I mean, I know there, and on that list, there was one call that Etna didn't even show up to that Freeville did.
Right.
And this is, and then there's. That's all it shows on the stuff I got from Justin. I lined up all the, I lined up the times of the things, and this is where. Like when we were talking about, it, I was like, well, how is that? I don't know, like, cause you had come back, the first meeting, was it last, like it's in October, you said, pretty much what you're saying tonight. But the thing I get from the county, so I was curious about what it looked like, and then I can, if you want me to show you the chart real quick, I can share it up there, I think.
Tell you there was one today.
But the thing is, it's like, this is just like what I get from them, and I don't know how,
Yeah.
like, accurate,
And I can verify that the information from the county isn't what we're looking
So
for.
just to, really.
Every time a fire department is toned down.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is, their station is attached. And when it shows that it's attached, it shows that there's a response. And that's very misleading, which is why before, when I was talking about Chris's numbers, they're not right. The numbers you get from the county are not
No, they're
correct. The times you get from the county are not correct. The information you get in the calls from the county are not correct.
We understand, but it's still helpful to look at some of the information, so we understand what the county says. It's,
You're getting the wrong information, so it's not helpful information.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed too is that, monitoring it informally is that previously the county was assigning a code specifically when there was no response to the UR. And not seen that code
Well,
in a few months.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know that they're tracking it the same way that they were previously, and I don't know why.
okay.
But you
yeah,
guys,
but that's what, one thing we're learning. It's
I mean, you
just-
guys know when you get there and they're not there, so you know when they don't respond.
Right, and sometimes, and this is something we discussed, is that they might show up, but it's like 10 minutes after we do, so.
Yeah.
Or after the
Who has the,
EMS call, so in terms of utility, it's not, they're gonna go up, but it's not.
Right, I mean, I was just gonna bring that up, that, I mean, we've had 2 calls now directly across from our station, we can see their station. And we have 3 of our vehicles plus, you know, a handful of Freeville people. And they have someone that comes from a claim and gets there after the ambulance gets there. That's not helpful, and I mean, frankly, that gets into the like care.
It's not her fault.
Right, I mean, I'm just talking about like, if we're just looking at a call sheet, it says that someone did respond. But that's not necessarily the whole picture of what's happening.
Totally get that.
well, we get that. So the one saying, like, when we look at, like, when people come and tell us what they're doing, and then I ask for like Justin's like, can you just show me a thing? What happens is this, I'm gonna try to zoom it in. So. For instance, this one, it's kind of highlighted. I'm gonna have to scroll over, but this is what it shows, like E, I guess is well, it's Aetna. And then. So what I did was I lined up all for those zones, because there's a zone column in 306, 305, 307. Those are the Aetna ones. I think those are all of them. So when I line up, say this one from last January. What happens is that it's in their territory, so that shows time. I don't know what that means about, but then, but you all have responded too. But what doesn't tell me is like who got there first, who didn't, whatever, and it just says that. Both departments were there, at least if you look at this way, that's what it, so.
The budget includes stuff for rescue, and it doesn't seem fair that they should get money for rescue. That should be divided between the other 2 departments that are going to the rescue calls.
But I think if I get nowhere here, they would, I
They
mean,
would
I'm
do
just saying, like,
the
if they were here, they're gonna probably start saying us that, yeah, they. So that's the only problem, that's the only thing, it's like, we're gonna get into this thing where people are gonna. And we don't wanna like create any sort of animosity between folks.
But honestly, that's what's been going on in Star. Since Chris has been doing this stuff, all that's been happening is a wedge trying to be driven between the fire departments. Fortunately, that hasn't happened because the fire departments are closer now than they've ever been.
But
In many years.
But the question is this, like, say we cut from Aetna, okay, to make up for this.
I'm asking what we're doing.
Hmm?
You wanted this information, we've given you the information, you asked how many calls in our budget, when we were sitting here with the budget meeting last month, you asked how many times we're going to Aetna.
Right,
60 some calls to Aetna now.
yeah,
How many calls to Aetna now? What are we doing about it? How are we?
So what I'm asking you is this, is like how, if we take that information and you're saying. You all have been closer, how, so is this gonna create a rift between you folks, and
Sure.
everyone else in that?
Of course it will.
And you're okay with
When we
that?
start talking about budgets with this stuff, of course it's going to. How can it not? That would be like giving Christina a 10% raise, 15% raise, and you didn't love it. That's gonna cause a rift.
He makes me
I get
overnight.
I understand, I completely understand it, but yeah, it's going to. But sooner or later, something's gotta happen.
I get it, I'm
Receiving
just,
service with pain.
I understand where you're.
Took calls from the county, we went to their calls for 2.5 months, never saw anybody. Have more than one unanswered call.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, why is this information coming from the county like this though?
Cause.
That's what I don't, that's what I don't.
Because it
That's
does.
the way the
Yeah.
911 center works.
That's how that 911 center
It
works.
doesn't allow us to manage well.
No.
We feel like we're shooting blind with some of this stuff and it's frustrating. That's why I asked you earlier, do you guys talk about this? By this, by this, I mean the overlap of your service into calls they can't make.
Can't talk to them if they're not there.
That's what I'm talking about. So how do we effectively manage this from our position?
As a-
We, and be responsible to the taxpayers of Dryden.
Obviously, I'm responsible for the contract, just like you're responsible for ours, I'm
Right.
responsible for theirs.
But the
If you
best
take your
numbers,
car to the mechanic and he doesn't do the work, he's still gonna pay.
okay, but you also can't analyze what's wrong with the vehicle if your code reader doesn't work. Right now, our code reader isn't working.
You're still gonna pay them to use that code.
So.
I don't know if the metaphor works.
Quite perfect idea.
I don't pay anyone to read my code.
It's like, worth that time.
Yeah, okay.
Guarantee you, my code reader is a lot better than yours. But either way, I mean, you know, you're.
I just have, sorry, sir, I don't know you, so,
Me,
yeah,
Brent House,
nice to meet you, Brent. Sorry,
5 years I've been in that fire department,
I know a bunch of these other guys and I didn't know you, so I apologize. I just wanted to know who I'm talking to.
still on the top 10 responder list. I live probably 600 feet from the fire station.
Great.
Thank you.
And so one of the bigger issues that we have here is, we have real tired of going to that month. To not have anything from there to show up. But we still do it. Yeah. We all will.
Yeah.
But we would like to get compensated for it. Yes, I'm going for the directors. Wait, still, finally getting. I was waiting, on the chief for 28 years. So I got a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Very good.
So like if you guys needed to, would you be able to divide your budget into the two sides of the house? It just seems that any fire department could. Right?
Are you talking to Varna?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just using you guys just for like advice or whatever. Like if you needed to, could you say, okay, this is what we need for EMS, this is what we need for fire?
We do that.
I didn't think that's what you were asking.
Yeah,
Our EMS
no.
budget is extremely low for this budget. It's not where it needs to be, but. Yeah, we can only go with what the budget is we have.
I think ours would be a little bit. Challenging, some aspects of it like supplies, FTZ, training, separate, fire, other things like utilities.
Right.
We have to be, our station has to be there 24/7 regardless, I guess just split it in that, about half of our calls are EMS.
Yeah, we still have to pay the power.
Our EMS apparatus overhead is very low. The medical supplies, they become quite expensive, it's fire, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of,
Could be separated out, we don't do that entirely right now.
it's mostly just the vehicles and the equipment, right?
I'd say so, and then,
Yeah.
administratively, there's other additional burdens like community certification and. All of our trainings.
So just to be clear, you guys are giving feedback about. Christina, just making sure I'm hearing correctly. You guys are giving feedback about the EMS response, not about the fire response? Or are you giving feedback about
I
both?
mean, between Varna and Fredo, we're being told with most of their calls, whether it's fire or EMS.
I thought you were just going to the rescue calls. I mean, you were being dispatched to the rescue calls.
Between, it's like between 6 AM and 5 PM on weekdays, Varna is automatically attached to basically every call.
On the first dispatch. Okay,
Service call, they had her end. That was great.
was the original agreement just rescue calls? Or was it always?
The new agreement was rescue call that fire carpenter today has been in place for like 20 years from what I understand. So I think it's my grandfather.
Okay,
We go to probably 2 or 3 fire related calls right now. Usually it's not a second tone or when they're not, when they don't respond at all. So we get called kind of late, but we go to those.
Same with-
monoxide.
Yeah, it's all the same.
If there's no response, they start the next closest, that's how I process.
In the evening, that's what.
So how much? So, what I'm hearing, tell me if what I'm hearing you say. Am I hearing you correctly when you're saying that between the two of you, you're responding to everything for Verna and they're not responding at all?
There were,
No, sorry.
Probably 90%.
This year, we had responded to about 54 calls, but I think it's about half. Like,
well, what I can,
For this year is 174.
yeah,
We've done 63 of them in Barn.
yeah, and what I put up was just through October 24th, and there were. I mean, just even if it's not accurate, whatever it says, there were 22 of it, Aetna had 22 of their. Whatever these calls that I found that chart that no one else helped them out with. And then it was split evenly between Freeville and Varna for the rest. So it's and that's, you're like, you got it as of today, I'm just like, mine's like 2 weeks, whatever. And it's 59 and 59.
So what,
So like either Varna or Freeville was at 59 each, so anyway, the point is, it's like,
so if Aetna's contract, and I'm not trying to start trouble, I'm just trying to make sure I'm hearing clearly. If Aetna's contract was not renewed, it wouldn't actually be an additional workload for you because you're already doing the work. Is that what I'm hearing you say? You guys are kind of
Well,
dancing, so I'm
yeah.
trying to make sure I'm hearing you clearly.
But overall, in the end, what I was talking about, our budget getting up to where we need to be in capital reserves. Whether we go to Aetna's calls, or we don't go to Aetna's calls, whether Barn goes to the calls or
That's
not,
not the
all of our
question.
equipment's the same.
That's not the
Price is
question.
the same.
It's not the question I asked you though.
I mean, no, our workload is gonna be about the same. But so are our costs, and we're not meeting the costs.
I get it.
yeah, that's what,
Get it.
yeah, so that's.
Our
what
call volume would probably go up a little bit for the remainder. I imagine that, let's say it's about 50 calls, but about half of them are probably in the area that we cover with EMS and half are the ones that Freeville covers. So it might be a
It's like
slight,
sending $200 and some thousand to a place that's not using it for anything.
for us, it'd probably be similar to the Southern Dryden expansion.
Well, we have a town fire coordinator in the room who helps us sort through all these things. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to this discussion? I know you like to choose your words carefully, but.
I think in general, town board would be wise to look at it as best you can. And it's true that the data that you get from the county is not very useful. But as best you can, based on everything that you know, everything that you not only spend the money for what you've gotten in the past few years, but also looking ahead, this is 2025 money. Right, contracts, so I would suggest that you look and see, what are we gonna get for our money in 2025? Are we gonna get better service than we got in 2024, same, or not as good service?
So. Or less. Just feeling blunt. So. Do you have any other input as far as? Would you back what these guys are saying that they're really covering the Aetna?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very well, it's good.
That's all I'm asking.
And there's nothing new being said here. Just. What it is.
It's not personal on anyone. On anyone.
I know.
But our.
That's the hard part about
community
all
is still getting served. We're still going to those calls, John is still going to those calls, we're all making those calls. But they're not going.
Yeah. But
Can we have?
The council is still providing the service, no matter what department.
Even my report, that was storm, all of that area was free. All the way to Route 13, And Charlie. They didn't call it 13. Call it 13. And on our side of Hancock Road.
Is this something we should discuss in an executive session?
I've been there long enough, I know that.
Yeah, they're not employees, so.
It's a bunch of.
Yeah, but this is budget anyhow. I mean,
Well, this is just a service that cries out for coordination in my mind, and it's frustrating for us to hear that we have these distinct areas, but the service to those areas are being shared and not by the entity that is primarily charged with servicing that area. And so there's a coordination issue here, and I think we can all see that. And how do we best use taxpayer money to provide the service? You know, I guess, you know, we will want to look into that with the contracts, you know, maybe write in something about coordination, which I don't know if any of you want to see in your contract.
Yeah, I'm not a terribly popular person in my life, so, you know. I have a lot
Well,
of
that-
friends, so I'm just gonna go all the way out on a limb here and speak fully for myself and not for any of these humans, okay? We've chosen not to renew our contract with Brookendale. Should we have a discussion about whether or not we choose to renew our contract with Aetna? I
mean,
know that
sure.
it would not be a popular thing to say, so y'all can throw rocks at my car, but, that's a big chunk of money that if
yeah,
eggs.
Your tires will
Please
just,
let it be eggs,
your tires will just run a little.
so.
well,
Everything I've been hearing for a year, it's like, should we have this conversation? I mean, before we go ahead and spend $250,000 giving it to Aetna. Should we rethink that? I don't know if that's something that we really can't do and would have to be a discussion in like October. Because we can't
Well,
at this late hour make that kind of a call, but is this the time to have that conversation? I'm still new to the game, so.
well, I think. Probably should have it, but I think they should probably be here too for that part of it, which is. Even if we're gonna, huh?
I think it should be in everybody in the room discussion.
Yeah,
At different times, but.
it's separate from what
Yeah,
they're
we have to
requesting.
pass the contract by law, so, I mean, the
Well,
budget.
our contract is different than our budget. I don't know why we don't need them together, but. I mean,
Well,
our budget request is. We asked for the.
Yeah.
We're asking for that to bring us up to where we need to be to maintain our capital reserves. That's not gonna change. And that's not gonna change the fact that we're gonna run that, we're gonna keep running that no matter what. Whatever anybody decides, that's not gonna change. We're just asking for, that's why we're here, we're asking.
Yeah.
Well, another way to look at this, and Amanda, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, is that we need a certain amount of money to run these services, whether Aetna's providing it or whether you're providing it to that service area. We could put this money in the budget with the idea that we're gonna iron out how this service is gonna be met with the contracts.
I agree that we have. to be-
Does that make, I mean, even though, you know, we put this in for service to one area, if we decide to move some of that from the budget, that we could do that if the contracts were different.
Adjusted.
But then we.
Well, that's the dollar amount that we like. The dollar amount of the contract with any of the department shows up in the budget. That's the thing.
And also it's publicly noticed, so the key is we have public notice that went out for the contracts. So. it
Yeah,
also includes the budget numbers in there, so you can't say, okay, we're gonna budget so much. Without, we still have to do another public hearing to change any of the
Right.
amounts.
But we
Yeah.
could change, we could
Subcontracts.
move things later if the contracts change.
no, we weren't gonna change the wording of the contracts. All we were gonna be doing this year is changing the number. For what we're paying, which is in the budget, but. What I'm saying, like, if we're gonna like increase, it sounds like what we're all kind of alluding to is maybe taking from the one department and shifting to another if the others are moving, or doing that service, so.
Getting the money in this budget.
Yes.
Reallocating through the contracts is what I'm talking about.
But the thing is it
Can we
has
do
to
that?
happen in the budget discussions, I think.
Because we have to give the big number to the state and the county now.
Right, what your tax bills are gonna be based.
Right.
Yeah.
on.
Right.
But then we have to have a separate public hearing.
On the contracts.
Absolutely.
Right, because I'm trying to remember, I was looking at the public health spirit bid.
It would only be fair for all involved to make sure all the fire groups came and got to
And so we
speak.
have to publish the budget and our budget lists out each department's amounts. Now, we can do a budget modification, change the amounts between those lines. But the key is, is the public notice.
For the total budget.
Well, it's, it's the public notice for the total budget. And then there's the public notice for the fire contract amounts.
Right.
Be a separate.
Yeah,
And we can separate those with two public notices and public hearing.
We just wouldn't be able to change the tax rate later, so we'd be locked into the dollar total.
Yes, which
Levy,
is
the
fine.
tax levy total will have to be locked in.
Correct.
That's, we could, it is possible to budget modification, which we're all very familiar with,
Yeah.
between budget lines within the fund.
Do you guys all follow that?
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Like, is there enough money in the tax levy? The budget and the fire reserves that the town keeps to give us the difference in our budget?
There's not enough in the reserves.
No.
These reserves have been eaten up the past few years. By additional requests. of fire department.
We'd have to raise taxes. Or we'd have to re-divvy up the money
Yeah,
later.
we're looking at us putting a certain amount of money in for fire services. If we're gonna increase yours, somebody else's is going to have to go down.
And I guess that maybe that's part of it, and I'm actually really glad that this conversation is happening because. You know, we're getting that information that, you know. There probably isn't a lot of wiggle room, but. It doesn't seem like this part of the equation is being communicated back to you very well in terms of having this deficit of policy being answered, so. You know, when we're feeling frustrated that, you know, there's not enough, you know, resources being, we feel that we don't have enough resources to adequately keep up with things. But you guys don't know that there's calls that are not being answered, you know, that we're covering anyway. So like when I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, there's a $250,000, you know, option here that it doesn't feel like we've really had a conversation happening here. So is there a way that we can help get you all, like Jason, if you could email that spreadsheet that you got from the
Yeah.
county to us, and then we can compare and contrast what, you know, and we give you additional information, would that be helpful around this conversation?
Yeah, I think so.
So one thing we do in our narrative at the end of the call is if there's no Aetna unit that responds, in our narrative, in our summary, we put no response from Aetna. So we track how, when they're not there, so we can compare notes to your spreadsheet that way too. So you got all numbers in there, we can look.
I guess what I'm trying to get across is like, we're hearing you, what you're saying, you guys don't wanna raise.
all right.
I totally with you on that, you know, and I don't wanna cause more conflict for you all, you know, Dan, I can already feel the headache that you have coming up.
Sorry,
You know,
Dan.
But there is some festering resentment and frustration on our end because we feel like there's this glaring problem that we see that hasn't been communicated well to you all, and so, you know.
Right.
But when I think of a solution, like if you were to ask me how I would address the problem, it would be, we need to explore the amount of mutual aid that's being given and proportionally redistribute to budgets to make up for this. You know, it sounds like there might even be a little bit left to put in reserves. I understand that that's a very hard conversation and that's opening a can of worms. I understand, but
Worms,
it seems like
snakes,
that not wanting.
spiders.
handle something very nasty. You know, but if we want to be as committed to not raising taxes, it seems like that's kind of the only logical option that's really left. to us, You know, and that's a hard thing to have to say, but, you know, we're doing the work already. It doesn't cost you all any more for us to continue to doing the work than to just redistribute. Is that clear? Is that?
I think you're saying what we're all thinking.
And I just wanna say, cause I hear you say, cost us more, it's costing all of us.
Well,
I don't want you to think it's an us and them, we're all in this together.
There's other options, and, you know, and then when I see they're gonna spend, you know, they're gonna do a grant for $50,000, $25,000 that is gonna be spent on researching the district.
So let me say something to that before everybody gets all their knickers twisted. Having a chance to gather information from people out there is information that then goes to you guys, not just us, but that's information to you guys. That quite frankly, is information that may help with long-term strategic plans, may help with where you decide maybe where to share or not share. Or maybe between y'all decide, hey, this is crazy, why aren't we going down this road? I think it's worth, especially if we can get a grant, pay for it. Why not give you that information and give us that information and give our community that information? Doesn't hurt anybody.
I think having an outside independent.
That's what we're talking about.
Assessment.
Yeah. It's free information for you, for running and for the community.
And this,
Well, how much of that money are we spending out of budget?
Not on the fire department. budget. It's not on the fire department.
It's not fire money. The state's the state, from my understanding, has been putting this money out there to help communities look and see if there's ways to reduce administrative burden and administrative costs. So that's my understanding of it, is it's an opportunity to get more information for everybody.
And I think it's a way to look at it from everybody's point of view, from the town's point of view, from the fire department point of view, from the resident point of view, it's gonna say, what's gonna make sense with this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And that's the goal of this
Yeah.
hopeful application.
And fire district or not, there's gonna be valuable information in there for everybody.
I suspect that they would probably find this discrepancy in all distribution.
I bet you they would.
if a third party can present that information to us, I think the likelihood of it being accepted goes up. If, you know, we bring it up anecdotally like we did tonight, it's harder to convey it in a way that everybody embraces it and accepts it. So, you know, we butt heads on this every cycle, and you're right, creates a little bit of a headache, and we're trying to think, how can we resolve this for this board and future boards, so we're not, you know, at odds so much over this.
Yeah. And Rebecca, I sent to you and Mike and Mason. Yep.
I'll get back to filling in my correction.
Yeah.
I do the next year.
Okay, so I guess what we gotta do though is.
Schedule a meeting.
No,
schedule
yeah,
a meeting.
because-
Well, I mean, no. Okay, so the budget has to be passed by November 20th.
Right.
Okay, and by the 15th, we have to have the final number to publish them. Because we have to, well, and I was looking at the comptroller's chart, I mean, reality, like the latest we can publish one is the 15th.
Which means 2 days before those figures.
I think we've got the information we need to pass this. We've got to address
Oh,
the
we have to address the
Brookendale
conflict.
Marta situation.
Right, and we have to address their situation with the debt note volume for a bit.
But that doesn't have to be part of this budget process.
Well, yeah, okay, so you're talking about the total number we're gonna
Mhm.
do and then do a separate public hearing on the individual contracts.
Yes,
Okay, because then that would mean for the total number, we'd be adding in back at the like 25,000 for the total number. And then we're gonna come back and then adjust the contract amounts. Between the departments. That's what we're talking about.
Passing the total. number.
If we decide to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so, cause I think that, for what, they were asking, they're. The difference of what they're asking for is basically 100,000 above what.
Yeah.
Of what the, well, it's
We just don't have the money.
100,000 above the prior year.
Yeah.
Asking for more.
I think we passed.
That's like, I mean, I think what they're saying is that you should pull it from here. With us, without raising the total amount, other than adding back in the roughly the Brookendale amount to cover the extra
I would say 20.
territory.
I do think we should bring in that Brookendale money back in though.
Well, not the full amount. I think 20 would do it.
Okay. I didn't remember off the top of my head what it was. I thought it was 20.
It's like 23.
29,561.
So the difference between what we initially published and what they were asking for was 25,000. I think that's right.
Right, so there's 415, I think, was the original low budget, and it was about like 419 something, 419, 458, the last workshop.
Right.
And everything will have to incorporate.
Oh, yeah, because we gave them that, was it $3,000,
Oh, right.
that little bonus.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you guys are covering that Brookendale area, so if we took some of that Brookendale money.
Right, but then now we're talking about for when we redo these contracts, taking some of what. From what Edna was requesting, and shifting it to Freeville.
We need to look at that. But if we put the 20,000 back in from Brookendale, then we can pass the budget. So
Next week.
the money goes through and then we need to work
But then we
through.
need to work on that
Yes,
contract. Okay. Wait, would that work?
I don't know where we're at.
yes, just say it.
Down, in Arlington, there's a lot of correct.
Yeah. All right, so it seems like that's what we're talking
Yeah, what's the number?
about. The number, so what's
For Barnet.
the number? that-
439,046.
It was 248,500.
It would be 20, yeah, 48, 38. 39.
Yeah.
$20,000, you know? It's only
23.
23, yeah,
No.
for the total budget amount for all the departments.
Oh,
And then, because we're gonna be adjusting the
I didn't
contract.
understand the question.
I know, but we're talking about adding Barnett's.
Right.
Okay,
What's the number? Is it 20 or 23?
Yeah.
23,
Sorry,
I
if we,
thought.
you know, getting $20,000.
but if we-
But that's added to the total amount of what the department, what do we publish then? Because the Brooklyn, that like the amount that used to, that would, what had gone to them.
So how do you account for that coming in though?
That's why I'm kind of confused. I've heard a lot of numbers and so I guess I'm kind of changed.
So if we can into the total number for all the departments.
You said again, because there's a lot there.
All right, so it'll be for the total number of all the departments. Okay, it'll be 23, and then within that is where we're gonna. Which would account, yeah, when it's, there's a total number for the fire tax, the tax levy.
Okay.
Okay, so you're adding 23,000 to it for additional tax levy to add
Right.
to the total overall we need. But that would then, so, okay, so give me a second.
Right, and then from there, what seems to be. Talking about is then. Changing Aetna's contract number,
what did we say, 23?
that was what Brookendale had been paid,
That's the contract.
it was like.
We paid Brookendale 29,561.
Paid
20,
So I was wondering how we got, I heard 20 and then. all of a
Because
sudden
we
23.
talked about how many calls they actually have. And it's
So.
gonna add about 20.
If I'm not mistaken, hold that.
Yeah.
Then why aren't we just adding that to theirs to get them to?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. And then,
Yes, you think.
We were overpaying Brookendale. It's our feeling that we were giving them a bit more money than the calls they were actually responding to. And I think they were responding to, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was between 20 and 30 calls a year. And 30,000 seems like a lot for 20 calls.
So the difference between what they're asking is 21.
right,
So instead of 30,000, you broke it down, then the 21 should be fair to what they want.
That's what we're talking about doing.
Same.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I think that's everything. to do.
yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
And
you.
then, and then we have to address that other elephant in the room, which is how you've been covering for Aetna all the time.
But that's a different
That's
discussion.
but as far as the total amount of money. So we're gonna use that, our total, pull it out of, reallocate. from there.
So even though it's
Yeah.
23, they're getting 21. And that 2,000 will go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, I thought it was, for some reason, I thought it was 23.
Let's pick a number and vote on it, but we have. the
Yeah,
best
no, it was
version.
29
Put it back in.
Yeah, that's for 4. So we had 21 to what currently have here,
It brings it up to 440.
brings it up to 440.
Okay, that's what we're talking about then.
So we need to make a motion, put the 21 in.
Right. To add it to it's to the total fire amount. and-
Yes.
And that'll be,
So the total town contract for Varna would be 440.
right,
And 46.
So,
That's
And-
just what they had, that's 440, 0, 0.
Right.
Oh, that was,
3,000 with at this point, if you can find out the difference.
right. Right.
About 21.
Okay, and then now for Prevo,
More to come.
We're sticking with the number that we have in our proposed budget.
but we're gonna, on the contracts, since what we're talking about is then taking from, moving from one to theirs.
Nice.
That's gonna have to be.
Which is gonna have, we're gonna have to do that. In the next month,
Right.
which is a separate public hearing for the contracts. Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
And you can that change, you have to. public.
right.
Yeah.
But we're not changing the budget.
This gets,
So Randy, do we have to republish the tax rate and the tax levy?
But I think we
Because that was part of the.
I would, I think
So
you have
can-
to give it a best shot.
can,
I mean, I can, I have calculation, I mean, I can do it, I just need to know that we're gonna have to do a publication. Or put in a request in for a publication tomorrow to change before we pass the budget. My,
because of the, because of the 21,000.
because of the 21,000.
well, but because of all these other things that we do,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because we're increasing the amount of tax levy compared to what we published last week. So that's not just that, we're gonna have to republish. Portion of the public code.
I don't think it's because of the increase in the levy, I think it would be because changing that line for one.
Okay, but that, okay.
But we're not changing anything on Varna. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
never
what the
mind.
21's
Yeah,
going for
yeah.
now.
Forget I said that. I was thinking a different
So
department.
we have to.
It's been a long day.
It's been a really long day.
So the contracts are gonna change from these big guys.
right.
Possibly, future discussion.
But I wonder about, establishing a contingency line tonight.
Mm,
That's a whole other,
mm,
or, I don't think we can establish a contingency line for this fund. We can do it for the general fund. We can't do it for highway. I'm pretty sure it's only general.
At some point in the past, though, the board did set aside some money.
The
That's
fund
really
balance,
wasn't gonna get.
Burning.
yeah, but the fund, well, whatever it's been, the fund balance.
Well, that was,
is
with the
gone.
fire.
We've been burning it. No pun intended.
Not in the fire.
No, that was like when was like 12 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we did it. I think it was like 12 years ago or something with,
Or maybe it came out of fund balance.
well, yeah, it was gonna come out of fund balance, but it was,
Fund balance.
yeah, because it was had to do with some kind of I don't know, some sort of equipment, but it came out of fund balance. That was like 12 years ago, though.
I was still.
All right, we'll figure out the.
We need to pass that resolution or
We need a
motion.
resolution.
Yeah. And then can we figure out time that we can go talk, like, I can meet with you guys, so we can talk about that stuff soon? I mean,
Just you or all of us?
I don't know, if they want to, we'd have to hold if we want to do it at we have a meeting next Thursday. You can bring it there too, but I want to just talk beforehand, if that's all right.
And the difference we're talking and what we're asking for was, you know, it was 338 or something, and what was published. We're asking for 409.
Yeah.
71. We don't have 71 in reserve right now. We don't have 71 somewhere else that we can get our budget where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And then figure out the other stuff, because it's really a separate issue.
We're already running.
Well, if we're talking about reallocating stuff this year from one department, just we're not like you. Then that's something we have to talk about before we finalize the actual contract. It's separate from the tax levy stuff, but we don't want to do it in a vacuum. And you want to know the information you want to give us.
Yeah, but tonight we need to settle the tax levy.
Huh?
Tonight we
Yeah,
need to
that's
settle the
the
tax levy.
definition.
Get it done.
Yeah, if we're gonna vote on it next week.
Yeah.
I mean. So yeah, we have to publish a number for next week, but. And then if we don't come up with a vote next week on it, then we're gonna end up publishing again too, if it's gonna be coming out of the tax levy. So. Okay,
I think we all agree on that.
yeah. Okay, so,
What the increase is, so we have that in record,
Mhm.
the final, so,
well, the right now, the number we're talking about is adding the 21 back in,
There's 5 cut,
right?
so it's 16.
So it's, huh?
No, because we already took the other stuff out before we published. So this is putting it back in.
Not for court security.
I'm sorry, I was talking about the fire.
Yeah, we already,
Here we did.
We already did the court security.
yeah, the court
We just have
security.
to say,
we're
But
just-
we're talking about the total, I thought we were talking about the total budget too.
not just the budget.
No, this
This is
is-
the fire, just this.
Okay,
You are, you're.
The fire total.
Right now, you're making a resolution to change fire department line of. 3410.403.
Yeah.
440,000.
that's correct.
Well, that's basically the motion that I've been checking to make sure that I have right numbers. To make sure I'm going in correct.
All right, and then. But if are we gonna change the number? Rebuild tonight then, and then,
no,
No,
I make a
change it up.
motion to change line 3410.403 to
440,000.
440,000.
Second.
And then if you want to change the contract, that's another.
We get that.
Yeah, right now we just need. to-
yeah, but if you're publishing this. I guess what's the problem is which we're putting like numbers. By department,
Yes,
like at a certain number, I guess,
yes. but
like basically unless we were to change.
As long as the total number stays the same, the tax levy won't change.
Right, but what,
Wait, put the contract in the one public notice and the tax levy and the separate public notice.
yeah, because the levy is. Is then doesn't, you don't have to say for the total levy, the amount the contracts are. Individually,
So what I don't know the legality of is. If you're bound by making the contract by publishing this number.
Right, I'm not sure of either. That's why I'm wondering, because the public hearing has notification of the fire departments and the contracts to be considered. All listed out, then it has total tax to be raised and proposed fire tax.
Right.
So my question is, can we have a notice, a public notice of changes to, or, you know, the wording for the 2025 budget, total tax to be raised of this and the proposed fire tax of this. And then we have a separate notice of, and the contracts to be considered once we.
Right, you'd have a
Right.
separate public hearing on the contract itself, contract amount.
Right.
So this
Right.
would
I
just,
just don't know how bound you are to make the contract for the amount that's listed.
so don't include them, just make the notice that we're putting aside $640 some thousand for our fire district costs for the contracts
It's more
to
than
be
that.
determined or something.
It's a combination of, there's a couple of
Right,
expenses, yeah,
But you,
but the levy amount.
but we don't, maybe we don't list, sorry, no offense, guys, maybe we don't list any of the fire departments, we just make a public notice of the tax levy for the fire cost.
That's not.
That's what,
Maybe you can make a quick call to AOT tomorrow, 'cause I won't. be there.
We just have to make sure because state has very strict rules on budgets and reporting and notice and so on, so we just wanna make sure we're not.
right, because otherwise we have to, if we're gonna be talking about increasing, we'd have to make that decision now, like, okay, what number are we gonna throw out there for Etna?
Yeah.
And Freeville,
Yes, I can follow you to tomorrow with that answer.
and then we'd have to do that now if we're gonna do it. The other way. That's what I'm saying.
Chris?
Just want to offer a cautionary note. I understand what you're doing. I applaud your efforts to finally do something. There's one person that has the ability to have Arna and Greenville going automatically in the amount of fire chief and if, and he will, is when there's been any talk of actually cutting their budget or their budget request. I can very easily see him saying, okay, I can see this coming. He said that to me. And that's why he originally refused my suggestion that he do exactly what he finally did do once he got a letter from you, Jason. So if he decides, well, this is what's coming to pass, exactly what I said was gonna come to pass, that you're gonna take money from us, you're gonna give more to Freeville and Varna, then he can just tear up both mutual aid agreements. And not only just the response to rescue calls, he can also tear up the long-standing agreement that he put into effect with Varna to cover service calls Monday through Friday during the day. And then what's gonna happen? Nobody's gonna go.
I would beg to differ that nobody would go.
Well,
I would beg to differ that if something that dramatic was to happen, the contract would have to be immediately reassessed and would likely be null and void. So, lawyers would have to be involved in that.
When they don't get any response for like 7 minutes, they automatically send somebody else. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's 3 times and then
Whether
over
it's
10 or 12
used
minutes,
late or not,
but then
it's an
people get-
automatic thing.
people get a delay.
That's true, but that's too long.
Understood.
I agree 100%.
We all get that.
So,
Right,
I guess just a thought. Is that if you're considering doing something like what I think you're considering. That maybe another way to address the issue is through the contract. Not the contract amount, but the actual contract. You will do this to get your money. As things stand now, last year anyway, like February 1st, everybody got all their money. You do have an opportunity to change that. So, you know.
Isn't that what I said 45 minutes ago?
It is. Exactly what you
I agree with Chris, but I believe it's already in the contract, you cannot reduce your mutual aid without notification.
Yeah.
So that's actually.
You can.
Right.
You can change it, but you can't reduce it without notifying them. In the contract.
Notified.
Yeah, it's just
This
notification.
is, we're back to the snakes and the spiders and the worms, so. But. To make Amanda happy, can we pass the resolution for the $21,000?
Yeah, so, all right, move that.
That's all right.
No, I.
It's already been moved and seconded.
Second, it's just say the vote.
We just need to vote.
I'll get them from our later.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all right. So then,
now we can go down rabbit holes again.
all right, so how we deal with this rabbit hole then? Cause. I mean, I like what,
I don't think it's something we're gonna be able to address tonight.
Yeah, no, we need to. I think we gotta figure out how to go through a planning discussion.
Do we need to make a motion to pass the budget now that the rest of it's tidied, or we're good?
no, well, we have to publish again for next week. and
Right,
then-
I didn't know if we'd make one final movie resolution we publish. Hey,
But. I guess the. The resolution is, I guess we have to, if we're permitted to. Publish the fire. Levy as a whole instead of broken down individually. We'd have to find, that's what we have to find out from AOT.
Yeah.
But if not, unless you're gonna, then, because. Again, this is what it gets back to, if we're gonna add money back for Freeville, we have to either. It's either gonna come from somewhere else, like somewhere within this existing levy we're proposing, or.
correct.
Yeah. But, because that's what they wanna hear, I mean, they wanna know that we're gonna do that.
I know they want to hear that, but I think
We can't
tonight
give an answer to that.
we're saying what the total spend's gonna be, and
Yeah.
We go in the same direction, that's all I want to know, we go in the same direction. My request is just where we need to be. We're moving that direction, I'm happy with that. We can figure it out.
Yeah, I think
We can have a
we're,
meeting, we can talk about whatever we need. And I want to answer whether we're going the same direction or it's just gonna be a no, we're not gonna do it.
We are making a cake and we are talking about how we're gonna divide up the cake, but the cake's gonna be made tonight. Without a code reader.
or a knife. No knives.
I'm looking.
Love my metaphors, but yeah, we're just deciding the size of the budget, the cake, the pie. And
Somebody signs a contract. If they don't live up to that contract. I'd expect to get my hands slapped pretty hard. Especially for the money we're talking.
Yeah,
well, the contracts could have dates built into them for performance and the next payment would be contingent on the prior performance.
right, but their contract wouldn't be, is separate from that one, so. You know what I mean, like the Freevilles is,
Yeah, as long as we're working on ours.
yeah,
I'm considering what our budget request is completely separate from Etna Barn and Dragon.
right,
You know, as long as we're moving in the right direction, the same direction for Freeville. That's, as long as we're.
Right.
Wherever the money needs to come from, whether you increase the tax levy or whatever.
Yeah, we're deciding the size of the pie
Right.
tonight.
Does the town collect? Claims fire district taxes?
Yes,
we do, we'll be sending it right to them, oh, yeah. Yeah,
and then it's sent directly to them.
Get the money.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a pass through, but their stuff doesn't have anything to do with what,
I know their fire tax rate is. 4 times what ours is.
Because we're our own taxing entity.
They're their own, they decide their own, that's the district. So that's what
Yeah.
they do. They're commissioners.
Still shows up on the residence tax bill.
They're a fire district.
Do you need the money amount that you're waiting for, or do you?
I just also wanted I'm just curious what's left in the
Fund balance?
fund balance, yeah. I was just seeing if I had the,
So fire department fund balance at the end of this year is expected to be $105,000.
okay. Okay, so there's room, yeah, to get a little bit of room to get to where,
There's a little bit, but it doesn't leave, I mean, there's nothing else that happens within the fire district, the fire department. Fire fund, really, the fire contracts and the workers' comp insurance. So that's the only thing that happen, there's no other. Ins and outs, I mean, there's some year cost and drift that will adjust. There is some, but you start to run a very, like, if there's a major emergency and somebody needs, one of the fire departments need money. There's nothing, we have nothing to help.
Yeah.
So that's where, for instance, maybe it's fine, again, because it's the fire department, that's all is in this fund, in this fund balance, it's nothing to do with town, it's nothing to do with. Road, nothing to do with that. At the same time, if there's a major problem, there's something there that anybody else.
It's.
For some history and. The end of 2021, the fund balance. For the fire department was 312,000. And we're now 155.
yeah. All right.
Then if we use that to get our budget where it needs to be, any adjustments on the other, like after that gets discussed. Then that goes back to the reserve balance, correct? I mean, that comes back in there.
We have to have a balanced budget. We really should, we can't, no way to have this extra. Money for tax levy should be going towards this. There is no reserves in the fund, the fire department funds.
We're setting the pie. We're trying to use Dan's analogy. We're setting the pie. And if I'm understanding Jason's question correctly.
Right.
He's saying if we had extra the guests show up for dinner, would we be able to go to the store and buy some extra pie? But that's not the way to set a budget. Did I follow that correctly? Did that analogy work?
didn't really hear half of it, but something about someone showing up to dinner and no.
I think that's what we call a mixed metaphor.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, the reason why I want to know what the fund balance.
Using half of that.
Yeah, and if we're going to be potentially reallocating, so like what I'm saying is it seems like there's some fund balance source we could use, but the problem is gonna be the next year's budget, which then what are we gonna come up with? Cause we can't keep dipping into that. Like we're gonna, if we dip in again to help get towards that, cause I don't know how we'd be able to pull everything from some other spot.
Have to tell
And
people, wait for dinner, they can't eat.
But that's not gonna be able to go on forever. So that's where I think that the village also has to step up and fill in some of that blank too. And I don't know like how much they can actually afford to do, but they don't have a court anymore. So I know that there's that entire court budget they could put towards the fire department.
I'm not calling them out of thunder, but.
Well, I will.
I will tell them.
You don't do the same thing with them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they already know that our ask and our budget over there is going to be very significant.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where,
That's what
you know,
we
I
need to
think
hear.
that the total
Well,
will,
when you're talking a significant percentage increase, I mean, what's a significant, increase in $13,000? Now you're gonna raise that $13,000 to 20%. $1,000.
Well, it should be 30%. If you're asking us for a 30%, you should be asking the village for the same,
I understand.
if you're gonna be fair.
I was using that as a
Yeah.
round.
Right,
I mean, you're still 13,000 compared to 300,000 is a big difference when you're at.
But we should. ask them.
well, I mean, you know, what they were spending on the court. This year, they budgeted 13,000 and change. That should be able to go completely to you. Right there at a minimum. Yeah. Well, it would make sense. It would be fair. I mean, it's like, it wouldn't even increase their budget. So. Yeah, that's part of it, I think, part of where the pile come from.
Yeah, and we are, I mean, we are in discussion with the village. I get that, but I'm not in.
I know they're not here, but I think that to make it work, because the total you're trying to get to. Is that you're trying to get that 100,000. So I think that from the amount that they put towards their court would be a good start from the village's side. To make up that, plus whatever we would get help out with, dividing the pie up and everything, but. But I think from my opinion, like that's the ask that has to be made of them, is like, now you put up a court. How about you give that to us, and then
That's been discussed.
I think that would make me happy if that's gonna be. Part of that. Okay, so.
Are we done?
Well, I suppose we're done, but it sounds like what's gonna happen though next week is that we're gonna. Yeah, we're gonna have a final. Number with them we have to come up with for on Thursday.
Well, I think we have the final.
We have a final levy number.
Final
We have a
levy.
final levy number.
We keep going around in circles on this.
Let's see what AOT says.
This is the problem, like if AOT says, no, we have to publish every contract, then we have to give a contract number now. That's what I meant. If we don't have to give a contract number to publish for the total levy, then we're fine. But if we have to, we're not.
Okay, I get it now.
So you get it?
I get it.
And we can't, and I don't think that we could do a meeting like on Veterans Day, just send it to publish it again for Thursday. I mean, I don't think that's something we could do. So,
No, because there's court.
well, there's no court, no, there's not gonna be court on
Veterans Day.
Monday, but I don't know that we can even do that. I don't know, we can't, but.
Oh, my God. Now these people stop.
Are you saying we can't, I thought we had discussed this earlier, that we could come back. We could pass these proposed contract numbers as we outline them. And then decide to reallocate the pie at another date after we've had some more discussion.
No,
with
the one,
departments.
okay, so in the past, we haven't had separate public hearings on the contracts. And if we change the numbers of the contract, like if we're gonna do different numbers, okay. The reason why we published every individual number is because we weren't doing separate public hearings on the contracts. This would have been the public hearing on the contract tonight. Okay, so if we're going to do it differently, then all we're talking about is the total levy number, and that's what public hearing is on, then the total levy number. And then afterwards, we're doing separate public hearings on the contracts. Now, we know a couple of the contracts, what they're gonna be. It's just a couple of them we have to adjust, and that's why you have to have public hearings on those.
Correct. But choose to check with AOT tomorrow.
And
If
see
it's
if we're
okay to
allowed to do
publish
that.
it. That's
We
what
already,
bumps
we
it.
already published it as individual contract numbers, so if we already did that, do we have to keep doing that for this year? And if we do, then we gotta resolve this before. What it's gonna mean is we're coming back here like on November 19th or something for another, to vote on the budget instead of doing it on the 14th,
Don't we have to have it done by?
by the 20th.
That's fine.
Cause on the 14th, we would set the final numbers of it, and then we gotta come back and actually vote, cause you're gonna have, you. I don't
For the
think,
budget, but the contracts themselves could wait.
Correct.
If we get a whole number.
right, if the AOT were to say we can publish the whole number, then we can do that other stuff. We have a little bit more time to do that.
Right. So hopefully by tomorrow, close of business, we'll know.
If they say yes, we just go ahead with that number next week.
Yeah, I will. Candy man. We'll get, first we'll do a public notice. Correct, tax levy for the fire. Departments, kind of whole.
For the fire protection.
Thank you, fire
Because
protection,
that's how it's.
that's how it's, fire
Okay.
protection district.
Right, and then. But if we're not but what I'm saying is if we're not permitted to do a whole number and not without breaking it out, then we're going to be coming back after the 14th. To vote on, because we're gonna have to put the contract numbers out on the 14th,
Yes.
okay?
Understood.
And in the meantime, we're gonna figure out the stuff y'all were talking about. And we'll talk about it again next week, but I want to still talk with you guys like on my own beforehand, so I can be ready for it and then. Just because I need to be educated, and if I suppose if anybody else wants to, I just know that. Getting another meeting going, but to be up before the 14th will be kind of tough.
Yeah.
So,
Now, no.
but we're moving yes in your direction.
So on
Okay?
the 14th, all
That's
all
what,
departments
that's
will
what.
be here.
I'm getting at.
That's, yeah.
Are we
Yeah, I
gonna
didn't do it.
make sure all departments are gonna be here on the 14th?
Well, they'll. It depends on the answer we got, I suppose. I
Okay.
mean, we have to, I mean, we have to. Yeah,
Amanda, I can email Lori. At AOT before I go home.
Okay.
And I'll copy you and make sure she has your contact.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
So just let us know.
yeah, I sent you those spreadsheets, so just. I don't know if you can let me know, like, cause I mean, Monday is probably sometime during the day, would probably be if you're available.